top 3 games to watch for Americans abroad. It is kind of a different weekend with quite a bit of domestic cup action. So I want to press you a little bit here, Jason.
Yeah.
What are, if we were to pick 3 games to peruse and kind of lock in on, let's ask for your top 3. What would be your absolute number 1 game if you're going to kind of clear your weekend schedule? You know, you're running errands, doing stuff with your kids and your family and all that. Where are you clearing your schedule for this week?
That's the wrong framing. I'm sorry to do this to you, Rob, but that's the wrong way to think about it. You're setting me up. There's no game that exists that's going to get me to clear my schedule. That doesn't exist. But what I'll say is there's intrigue, there's possibility. And what I would do is say, what's the game I have to check in on to see if I need to then make a decision about sitting down to watch it in the moment? And maybe it's so because of when lineups come out, maybe it's an hour before the game that I make my choice. And if it doesn't go my way, then I can always come back around. Oh, second half, I'll watch it. Unless it's just that interesting. And number 1 on the list is going to be Dortmund and Stuttgart, because we've got an American player who desperately needs more minutes, who desperately needs more time on the field, who I think has shown his capabilities enough to imagine that a new manager with a fresh start, fresh set of eyes, might look at him and say, all right, kid, you're in. Do this for me. Borussia Dortmund has signed Niko Kovač as their new manager. He debuts against Stuttgart. Will Gio Reyna play? And like I said, I'm going to be checking my FOTMob an hour before the game to see if Gio Reyna is in the starting lineup for Borussia Dortmund against Stuttgart. If he's not, I'm not going to sit down and watch that game, at least not the first half, because the chances of Gio being on the field in the first half are very, very small. But maybe I'm like, oh, it's going to be the second half of Dortmund and Stuttgart. What's the scoreline? Oh, okay, maybe I'll check in on that to see if Niko gives Gio some time. Now, the thing is, though, Rob, I will still be angry if Gio Reyna plays but doesn't come on until the second half as a substitute, because we've already been doing that. I'm over that already. Like, can we Gio needs to be in the starting lineup. And I know that I'm not considering the Dortmund side of things, and is that the right choice? And, you know, if you play Julian Brandt, can you play Gio Reyna and all that? But Niko Kovač has an opportunity to do the right thing by the talented American player who has, again, shown himself capable of stepping up in these big moments. Come on, Niko, do that thing for me. That's number 1.
Yeah, definitely. Last time I was on the show, said I'm desperate to see more Gio Reyna. He got everyone excited with his back heel assist in the game a week or so ago. We need to see more of that week in, week out. We want to be able to almost assume that he's in that starting lineup, right? And that game, Dortmund, Stuttgart, 9:30 tomorrow morning. Game number 2. Which one are you checking in on?
Yeah, so the season has not gone the way Milan wants it to go in terms of the league. They sit in 8th place. They're on 35 points. They are now back of Bologna, obviously Juventus, who's trying themselves to get into the top 4 to make it back to the Champions League. That is distressing, if only because we want to see our Milan Americans in the Champions League next year. I mean, they still have an opportunity in this campaign. They have a new manager, relatively new, less than a month on the job, I think, in Sergio Conceição, who I think has brought a little bit of a new energy to the club. There are still a lot of questions. Will we see Santi Jimenez really make a difference after his signing in January? He was one of the moves that Milan made. We obviously know Kyle Walker is there now. But, of course, this is about the Americans. So Christian Pulisic, Yunus Musah, away to Empoli in the league. And Empoli is by no means one of the big hitters in Serie A. 16th place, right now. They're back of Como. I mean, Como is the land of misfit toys. So, to have them go to Empoli, it has to be a victory. And if we're talking about, again, our Americans, we want to see Pulisic, who I expect to start, and Yunus Musah, who, had the difficult moment in the Champions League, Rob. Remember, he picked up 2 yellow cards, got sent off against, Zagreb, came back, had a pretty good showing in the league, in the Milan derby, which Milan, I don't think Conceição handled that all that well. I think he made a mistake with going too aggressive with his tactics in the tail end of that match, which allowed Inter Milan to find the equalizer. So they want to bounce back. They need full points against a 16th place team. Let's see if Christian Pulisic can add to his goal total, his assist total, carry the squad, and hope that Yunus Musah gets to start as well.
Interesting. What do you think that João Felix kind of adds to the mix there? Was it really offense that they needed? Because they score plenty of goals. They just don't seem to be able to consistently like keep any clean sheets or anything like that.
Plenty of goals is maybe stretching it a little bit. 33 goals in 22 games. And that's a decent return. But, you look at...
It's not free scoring by any means.
Napoli's doing it a different way. I mean, Napoli has given up 16 goals in 23 games. That's why they're in first place right now, 3 points up on Inter, right, in Serie A. But even Napoli has scored more goals than Milan has, which if Antonio Conte's team, which is mostly about running you into the ground and keeping you off the board, has more goals than Milan does have a goal-scoring issue. They had an issue at the center forward position. It's why they dumped Alvaro Morata and brought in Santi Jimenez. So they did need attack. They did need goal-scoring. Is João Felix going to be an X-factor for Milan? I'm not sure I saw enough at Chelsea. He's a talented player, but consistency was always an issue. Obviously, at Chelsea, Maresca thought of him as a League Cup all-star and a Conference League all-star. He wasn't even getting real minutes in the Premier League. So I don't know that I have a whole lot of expectations for João Felix. He has to prove something. It could be a change of scenery and everything goes well for him. So maybe that makes a difference. I don't know. But they've given up 24 goals in 22 games. That's a reasonable return, right? That's a pretty good defensive record. It's the goal scoring and the inability to put games away. And like I mentioned against Inter Milan, that has affected Milan's ability to be in the conversation as a Champions League top club. They do not want to be in 8th place.
So third of our top 3 of games to check out with American involvement abroad. And to be fair, we had to kind of scour the schedule to see which one, because there's domestic cup action. The Americans might not be playing in the UK. So we kind of had to hammer down and really look for something. And part of like following Americans abroad, you sometimes cast your eye on teams you might not necessarily otherwise take in. And game number 3 might be an example of just that.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Germany. Again, it's a stretch, right? There's not you could talk about Juve, who plays today, by the way. So if you want to watch and see if Weston McKennie gets a start, if Timothy Weah is in the lineup, look for Juve against Como today. But I could do that. I mean, Juve is obviously another club in Serie A trying to make their way back into the Champions League picture and not having the season that they've wanted. But I'm going to turn us to Germany and I'm going to go to the bottom end of the table. I'm going to go way down the bottom end of the Bundesliga, and I'm going to highlight Holstein Kiel playing Bochum. That is 17 versus 18 in Germany, Robert. And you might think, why, Jason, would you bring up Holstein Kiel and Bochum? Well, it's because Holstein Kiel has just added an American player. Mm-hmm. John Tolkin, formerly of the New York Red Bulls, has gotten his European transfer. Yes, he's landed at a bottom feeder in Germany. Yes, he's landed at a club that is staring down the barrel of relegation. But maybe he can help them. He did play last week. He did get a start. They play 5 at the back. It seems to be the right kind of role for John Tolkin. 93 minutes, 5.84 rating over on FotMob. He didn't do a lot in that game, but it was his debut. I'm hopeful that we see John Tolkin grow into himself in Germany. So I'm picking that one. I'm picking a game at the bottom end of the Bundesliga too.
That could be a huge one in the long run to see if John Tolkin remains a Bundesliga player or if he gets pushed down, because that is the last 2 places in Germany. And catching up on his debut, he had trial by fire. He played Bayern Munich in his Bundesliga debut, so he had the stiffest test right off the bat. And we've sometimes, scratched our head when attacking players go to bottom feeders. If this team is defending, will they, get to score any goals if they're, backs to the wall? But with him being a fullback, he is going to get plenty of practice at his defensive trade playing for Holstein Kiel.
Right. We want him to improve as a defender. Clearly, that would be good for his potential with the U.S. men's national team. But he's also got that wicked left foot. So, there are things he can do. with the attacking part of the game. And again, against Bochum, he should have an opportunity to do more of that. Like you said, against Bayern Munich, not so much. Against Bochum, come on, John, let's see what you got. Show us that New York Red Bulls or that New York Spirit or whatever, Jersey side. I don't know. Where's he from? Where's John Tolkin from specifically? Because he could be New York, it could be New Jersey, and I don't want to get them mixed up.
He's American. That's all that matters.
That's it. That's right. He bleeds red, white, and blue, Robert. That's all we need to know.
In Holstein Kiel, they fought back and made it a close game, 4-3 at the end of that last